arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick.
Roosevelt Elementary, 1911-2008. Roosevelt Elementary was built during the population growth period known in Medford as the Orchard Boom. The district purchased land for Roosevelt School for $3,600. In April of 1910, the district proposed a $50,000 bond to build two new elementary schools, Jackson and Roosevelt. The school was designed state-of-the-art and modern, with fireproof brick and concrete. These bricks that would later become a structural hazard were pressed brick instead of fired. The district contracted Alfred Ivy to build both schools in a year. Alfred Ivy built the Carnegie Library and many other local structures. The schools opened for students in 1911.
I began my teaching career at Roosevelt School as a student teacher 34 years ago. And to have the opportunity to return to Roosevelt was a special treat to me as a principal. I feel that Roosevelt has an outstanding tradition and heritage. Having been a school that is almost 100 years old now, the history that in just the community members who have attended this school, whose parents have attended the school, whose children and grandchildren have attended this school, it has an oral history that is just outstanding. And we have 3 window seats at this school, 1 in a classroom and 2 in the end of 2 stairways. And at any given time, it just warms your heart. And people who come into this school, they always remark about the wonderful scene of 3 or 4 children curled up with a book on a window seat and just absorbed so totally in that story.
Well, one of the wonderful things I remember about Roosevelt School is the warm feeling tone that permeated this school. One thing that I would frequently notice is that parents would gather around the radiators because they made the school feel so warm, and it'd be common to see parents and kids talking around the radiators and having little mini parent-teacher conferences. I also remember that before the cafeteria was built, that the kitchen was down in the basement, and every morning we'd get this wonderful smell of warm yeast rolls being baked, and that just added to the warm, homey feeling of the school. Well, when I first came as principal at Roosevelt, I used to always hear tales of Sarah Van Meter. She was the principal that ruled with an iron hand for over 40 years. And there was this story that was passed on about Sarah having switches, and people would think that they were sticks and that children would get switched when they got in trouble. Well, it turns out over the years the story kind of changed, and there is a closet just off of the office, and when you open the door, it's filled with electrical switches. So that was the switch closet that I discovered.
We are down in the cafeteria, the basement cafeteria, I should say, and the cooks did their cooking back there and the serving out this end here. This particular spot right here was where they kept their canned goods and the supplies for everything, I guess. And it happens that when I was principal here, the office, the school office, was directly above on the next floor. One day a teacher had sent a youngster who was not too clean to the office for me to talk to him about a bath or something of that kind. And I had been outside, but when I came in, the youngster was there and the smell was there also. I didn't know just how to approach the subject, but kind of got around to it, of the importance of having a bath. And he left, but the smell didn't. Soon it got worse. And we couldn't figure out what in the world this smell could be coming from. So I came down here and tumbled to the fact that when I opened the door, there wasn't any question about where the smell was coming from. And in looking back, we found that a nice big can of sauerkraut had a dent, I think was what they called them, and it had spoiled. And sauerkraut that spoils has quite an odor, enough that it was not only had come up into my office, but had probably followed the pipe on up to the room that this poor youngster that it was in, that had been sent to the office to talk about the need for a shower. We got a call in the office. The secretary turned to me and said, Mrs. Byers says there's a bear outside her window. Well, you surely don't expect to have a bear outside your window in this environment, but sure enough, there was a bear outside the window, and Mr. Chief McLean was just taking a class of 6th graders out for physical ed, and they saw the bear and all ran at it. And the bear, seeing 30 some 6th graders running towards it, wasn't about to hang around, so it took off. The police eventually shot it down by Bear Creek, but that's the bear story.
Unique features I remember as a kid, we'd come in, and these coat rooms in here, you could come in, hang up your jacket if it was a cold, wet day, put your lunches generally up above on the shelves, and they would stay there until you went downstairs for lunch. And it was just one of these places that kids gathered. You always carry on conversations of some kind, something that wasn't very earth-shaking, obviously, for kids, but the teacher would finally come in and say, come on, the bell would ring, and normally we'd just go on inside and take our seats and continue with class, and then come back out if it was recess or whatever, grab our coats and go outdoors. It was sort of a convenient thing. There was no lockers or anything for grade school, and probably didn't come into effect till later on when the newer schools were built, but this was sort of the lockers, I guess, in a way, where you would put your stuff and store your stuff either on the floor or up on the shelving. So just a unique feature for the school, and sort of a gathering spot. I guess the U.S. Senate now has a similar kind of thing with the old cloakroom, so where all the business deals are done, but in this case it was just kid stuff. The thing that I remember is they'd built a new annex, and the furnace room was downstairs, and there was a tale of a person being held actually down in the furnace room. It was sort of, the modern horror tale of, so, that's the one area we would check. You try to look in and see what was going on down in the furnace room, and it was sort of scary for all of us, but obviously nothing really went on, so, but I do remember that particular instance.
We're very thankful for the investment that taxpayers are making in all of our schools here in Medford. In 2006, with the passage of a very large bond, we've been able to go and take a look at what our needs are moving ahead for the next 40 years or so. At this site, we're going to be able to preserve the 1949 wing of the school. Renovating it, it'll actually have large classrooms that'll work very well for our students. The other portions that we will be removing will be replaced with 21st century construction, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, all the amenities that really will promote student learning, success, what this community wants for their kids. Schools are about relationships, about people growing and learning together, And so no one will miss the moldy smell, the asbestos, some of the crumbling parts of these buildings, but what they'll take away are the warm feelings they have and the relationships they've had. We're looking at continuing that tradition at this school, that students who come here in the future will know that they're loved, they're cared for, they're safe, and they're getting the best public education in the state of Oregon.